Mm. Assalamualaikum. Hello, my name is Ryan or Rahmat Ryadhush with our lecturers Dr. Aliamat bin Omar Ali and Pangeran Dr. Norhazlin binti Pangeran Haji Muhammad, as well as with my colleagues. We are PhD students from Sultan Hassanal Bolkiah Institute of Education or SHIBI at University Brunei Darussalam, and also Irham's affiliations Universitas Islam Negeri Malang, Indonesia. We would like to present our research so far, which entitled Revisiting Higher Auditing Skill, HOTS, based on Bloom's taxonomy in Indonesian's new curriculum systems. Before we step forward into more details, so far in Indonesia curriculums, we have a new curriculums, what we call as Merdeka curriculum or independent curriculum. So, this curriculum already started since 2021 or 2020. So this curriculums are changed due to the society needs, due to the pandemic outbreaks. So our governments, our Ministry of Education, and our Ministry of Religious Affairs, they put effort to change our curriculums to more additively to society, and then due to the what we face after COVID-19's outbreak. And then in this study, we more focusing on the Bloom taxonomy, but of course we face a lot of challenging into implement the new curriculum systems. However, so far, mostly our education systems, they are implementing the RBT or revised Bloom taxonomy from C1, C2, C3 until C6. So this is the components of RBT that what we use in our education systems. For the introductions, we have several components. So what about the purposes of our curriculums? What about the RBT? What about the understandings from the teachers and the students? So firstly, medical curriculum in Indonesian national education systems is trying to improve the quality of national educations as well as to take a relevance into students' 21st century skills. So because there are a lot of century skills in 21st century skills, one of them is learning skill, which contains innovations, creativity, critical thinking, problem solving, communication, and collaborations. Besides, one of the components in Merdeka curriculum is the use of RBT HOTS in the learning processes, especially in Islamic education. However, in this study, we focusing on the elementary and secondary schools level, especially in the Islamic religious educations for course, which aims to improve students' creative, innovative thinking skill and the achievement process. However, so why we choose Islamic religious educations? Because most of them, the teachers and educators which are talking about the Islamic educations and also relevant to HOTS implementations, they face many misunderstanding, they face many troubles, they face many problems because they really or they not really know how to implementing the HOTS and or they don't know what the underpinnings of HOTS. So because this is pretty new to our curriculum system, especially in our medical curriculums. Another problem is educators and researchers understands HOTS in more quantitatively and disintegratively. So quantitatively means or disintegratively means is the HOTS, the RBT HOTS understands by researchers, educators, and also the teachers itself is more separated entities. So let's say, as you can see on the screen, so the teachers is more focusing on the HOTS from the C4 until the C6 as the HOTS. So what does it mean is the teachers in Indonesia, especially in Islamic educations, they more put the attention into the C4 until the C6, while they forgot the C1 until the C3 as the part of the RBT. So this is another problem. So where the quantitatively HOTS is understood as the highest taxonomy before OTS or lower order thinking skills. Although basically HOTS is understood at a high level, but that doesn't mean that LOTS must be taught before HOTS and vice versa. So this is the problems that what we face so far. The teachers is more focusing on the C4 until C6, while we have C6 until C1 until C6. So why HOTS? One of the reasons is, in fact, or statistically, Bloom's taxonomy, especially in RBT, this is the taxonomy that the most widely used, developed, and understood by education's initiators, evaluators, and the teachers as well. So our research questions consist of two. First, what are the misconceptions about RBT in our national education systems at the primary and secondary levels in Indonesia? And number two is how to reconstruct the understanding and implementation of RBT in SPN, Sistem Pendidikan Nasional or national education systems for the students, educators, and researchers. So for our literature review, number one, we found that in 2013, Roland Case, he mentioned that Bloom's taxonomy is interpreted to prevent introducing the high-level tasks before lower order tasks to master. So it means they are misunderstanding by educators, by the teachers, to put or to implement the HOTS into the six components. So let's say for instance, the teachers have to implement it, the C1 or the C2 before C1. So like vice versa. So this kind of problems, the teachers is more misunderstanding what does it mean by HOTS. So the teacher is more understanding in the hierarchies rather than in integrative. So let's say the teachers they implemented C3 before C4. They implemented C6 C4 or C5 before C4. Oh, sorry, C4 before C5. So this is kind of a misunderstanding, especially in Islamic education teachers. So number two, by Muhammad Talha, he found that the system is sufficient for improving teachers' understanding of HOTS. Teachers prefer to use the old systems. Our teacher center and the teachers struggle to link the competencies required by students in the modern era in Islamic education and science. So more specifically in Islamic education systems, the teachers is they still put in the teacher's center for the strategies or the model of the learning. While for the Prasetyo 2021, students are taught higher order thinking skill processes in the cognitive domain. So according to Prasetyo, HOTS, this is the one of the sample by the researchers that they put HOTS only from the C4 until the C6. So in quantitatively, they put C4 until C6 as the cognitive domain. Yes, of course, HOTS, HOTS is more in cognitive domain, but however, C4 until C6 is only part of HOTS. So our pre-finding and conclusions. because we haven't finished yet our study, so we found that so far our pre-finding so far is for the teachers, educators understanding, they have the lack capacity or understanding in RBT or HOTS implementations. So HOTS must be understood in terms of quality as well as quantity. So our conclusion is for the teaching class practices. So we have so far two conclusions which also cited from Roland 2013 as our main resources, because our research is based on the literature review rather than the fieldwork research. So for our conclusion so far, number one is, rather than assuming that a higher order task will always be more complicated than a lower order task, the teacher can change almost a level of questions by decreasing the difficulty, but not the level. So it means that the teacher, as you can see and on the screens, the teachers maybe or potentially the teacher can apply or they can implement one of the HOTS or one of the RBT, let's say understanding at the first step of the teachings. So what happens in our education is the teachers is always they put remembering as the first step of the teachings. So this is have to relevant to materials and the contents of the teachings. So maybe the teachers can put analyzings in the first class or evaluating at the first step for the teaching courses. So number two or B, focusing on how a student learns rather than assuming that higher order result require higher order learning styles. So the solution is to invite students. The solution is to invite students to actively engage with higher order learning materials. So what does it mean is um, the students the student have to understand the material, and then also the teachers have to understand the materials rather than only focusing on the HOTS implementation. So there is a gap between HOTS implementations and also materials, because they have the teachers and also the students, they're only focusing on the HOTS questions rather than the materials as the main subject for the learning processes. So what about the implications? The implication is the teachers and educators cannot use RBT solely in the form of hierarchies, so which we believe is one of the factors contributing to the teacher's difficulty understanding of HOTS. So as a result, we propose using HOTS to focus more on students' complex needs. So the teachers, so we suggest to the teachers, Islamic religious education teachers, and also our education systems is more focusing on the materials, and then also what the teachers or what the students needs, and then also the society itself, where the HOTS assessment varies by the students, because the students is more complex, what they need, what they use, what they talks, and then what the society development. So there's complex components that maybe face the the systems or the educations nowadays. And then finally, we also recommend to the researchers conduct HOTS studies in the content development based on students' abilities rather than rigid standard. So let's say uh, we have 6 components of RBT. So the what we found is so far our literature review, mostly the researchers, they put attention only from the C4 until the C6 as the HOTS, while according to us as according to our study, we found that from the C1 until the C6 is part of the RBT and also HOTS. But the differences between HOTS and LOTS, or lower order thinking skill, and a part of the quantity, and then also part of the quality itself. So we can take relation between what the teachers or what the students needs into the materials, and then how is the difficulty into the learning or the material itself, so the teachers may potentially she or he can change or can arrange the HOTS based on the student's needs. So to avoid the Bloom's taxonomy paradox that has plagued the Indonesian educational systems, tasks can be developed with any level of cognitive ability. So finally, we suggest that to our researchers, to our educators, the teachers actually can put any level of taxonomy into their learning processes. So let's say they can put creating as the first step for the teaching and learning, while also remembering maybe they can put in the last of meetings. So I think, or we think that our finding is very flexible to our education systems. So because nowadays the students comes from any backgrounds, they comes from in diverse of family status, they come from maybe they already reached many things. So we have to take relevancies between our material contents, the HOTS, what they use, and also relevant to 21st century skill. So far, this is our pre-findings. So hopefully we can make it in more detail in our within 2 or 1 month so far. So thank you. Hopefully you can understand what we propose so far. Thank you. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.